I'm wondering whether there's a new Bawumia. Because remember, in 2016, President Akufo-Addo said, this is a man who assisted President Kufuor. He was a deputy Ghana, governor for Bank of Ghana. So he was going to save us. And so a lot of people sort of trusted what the president was saying. And they gave him the nod. The whole strength was Bawumia coming to save Ghana. So Ghanaians voted for Nana Akufo-Addo and Bawumia. I remember in his urge of excitement, he said, we wouldn't even need loans. We'll just tow the roads and we'll be the roads. And many, many more. And when in the middle, just not in the beginning of the tenure, the first time, he said, "Oh, we have arrested CD and given the keys to the IGP and many more. What have you seen? We are witnessing the highest level of poverty in the system here." Just recently, the Statistics Service released data that about 7.3 million households are poor. And the World Bank also confirmed further with another details of what 800,000 people also very, very poor. And when these issues are chunked out, I mean the numbers, these are households. And on average, you have about three people in any household. And Ghana has about 31 million people. So that means that we are in a messy situation. I'm wondering whether the vice president believes in what he's saying. The same thing that he said, and they said when they were given power, even when in the first day that they came into the system, has been colored, decorated in a different way, as he's saying. Now, Greek, we will do this and this. But in all these, I was expecting that Bawumia comes out to say, we are owing close to 800 billion Ghana cedis in debt. And these are my plans to pay those debts. Again, the concern that COVID and Ukraine war has been, I'm not sure whether they've stopped saying that. And so we need Bawumia to talk about, Vice President Bawumia, to talk about how he is going to get out of this challenge. Of course, yes. You're coloring all those issues relating to Greek food production, energy production, many things. Tell us how you are going to help pay the debt, because you've contributed significantly to that. We don't have any evidence, Doc, that Bawumia, with all these good things that he's saying, I don't know whether he's getting a consultant to tell him this, but if it is coming from him, we don't have any evidence that he proposed this thing to Nana Akufo-Addo, his boss, and that he refused. Otherwise, we will still have to hang him with this issue of, credibility. I think he has some credibility deficit that he has to bail himself out. The economy is in crisis. We are in challenge. So I think that all that he's saying, Doc, they are rhetorics. They don't mean it. But there's no evidence to demonstrate. He has about 8 years, and then has been done. For me, I think that if I'm back to it again, all those rhetorics, all those presentation gymnastics, Bawumia would do this. He had the opportunity. He had opportunity in 8 years. Why didn't he do this? And I think the last time we were here, Nana did say something as well that, he is not the president. He needs the power. But if you've been engaged, granted he's a consultant, because Nana placed all his hopes on him in the early part of his campaigning in 2016. Then Ghana we gave him the note to manage the economy. So if you are the guy that the president, dumped all his hope on you, show us the evidence that all these good things that I'm saying. I told Nana, I presented Nana, and he debunked them or he never accepted them. We haven't seen any sign of that. So I think that this issue of credibility is a problem. President Bawumia Vice President Bawumia lacks that credibility. And many, many more promises that he's not been able to do. You know, Doc, this reminds me also, there was this issue of one constituency, $1 million. And once Bawumia was in the Cape Coast, and they asked him, so go, apply, that money is ready, only for it to be something else. So I think that the issue of credibility challenges is hanging on. And I wish you well. Nana is the vice campaign chairman, and just this morning he said he was on that fundraising tour, and I'm wondering, of course, people, but within MPP's talk, there are people who are just impervious to all these happenings, and they will not take whatever happens. They think that the MPP, the Bawumia, and that is it. But there are many more also in that stock who think that in Nana Akufo-Addo Bawumia, they have woefully performed, woefully managed this, the state getting us into the ditch. So personally, I think that, Vice President has nothing to offer. He can offer them now. And so far, as I did say, we have not seen any evidence demonstrating that, yes, all these good things that Ghanaians should give him another 4 years for what? And there is that sense of continuity because they are calling for breaking the eight. They are not calling for a new era altogether. So just a continuation of the mess. I don't think that the good people of Ghana will have time for that. President Mahama, during his tenure, within the 4 years, just compare the 4 years to Nana Akufo-Addo Bawumia, 8 years. Phenomenal difference. And that is what gives Ghanaians the hope that Mahama should come and save Ghana.
My brother here has some fundamental issues that are interesting. I thought I would have a comment or two. He says that President Akufo-Addo brought Bawumia and said that he was going to be the economic messiah. What comes to my mind is, has Akufo-Addo complained? My brother, has Akufo-Addo complained? But you said Akufo-Addo gave him a job. Has Akufo-Addo complained that the job has not been done? Now, we also know that since 2020, we've been through an extraordinary setback, which is COVID-19. We know you can't run away from it. In fact, when President Mahama went to Harvard and he talked about the damage that COVID-19 has brought on African economies. We don't have much time. I've read it to you. And he talked about how COVID has driven 55 million to poverty, how it's destroyed the economic fundamentals of African economies, and making an appeal for Africa to be. Of course, strangely, when it came to Ghana, he said, as for Ghana, the Ghanaian case, there's Akufo-Addo. But generally, in the African case, it's COVID. And what he said at Harvard about the damage that COVID has done. I mean, I couldn't be more eloquent than that. When it came to Ghana, he said, well, as for Ghana, there's because the government is not good. But
you mean when he arrived in Ghana? Or
even at the speech?
Yes, so the speech was specific about his country, Ghana.
Yes, and I'm saying that after giving the general African situation, about how COVID has damaged African economies, when he came to his own country, he said, oh, as for my own country, Ghana, there is the government. But for the
there's a country-specific analysis.
Of course, but
when COVID affected us differently.
Exactly. Yes, but the general effect on African economies, well, it didn't affect Ghana. It could have affected Ghana. But he painted a clear picture of how COVID has affected African economies. But when he came to his own country, he said, oh, COVID is the government's inefficiency. But that's where the politics comes in. But clearly, what he said about the damage to African economies by COVID contradicted what he said about Ghana. But I'm saying you can't run away from the... And when you look at the economic indices in the 3 years before COVID, 2017 to 2019, you would see that the indices were some of the best stuff we've had in this country, at least in the Fourth Republic. If you look at the GDP growth, for example, they were some of the highest in the world. 8%, 6.2, 6.5. Then in 2020, it dropped to 0 point something. That's a huge drop, and that affected our debt to GDP ratio because your GDP dropped from 6.5 to 0.8 and so on. So these are difficulties that you cannot ignore. But in the period before COVID, you would agree that the performance was much better. Now, it says, does Bawumia believe in what he's saying? But what I have told you about Bawumia's vision, do you have a problem with them? You didn't tell me of any problem that you had with this vision.
I do have problems.
But you said you have credibility with the person. Okay. If you are going to talk about credibility, I mean,
I do have problems.
Mahama has been president, you would agree, for 4.5 years. And his work or his performance in those years obviously did not meet the expectation of Ghanaians. And so he happens to be the only president in the Fourth Republic who was not given a second term. And he happens to be the only contestant in an election who suffered the biggest loss in the Fourth Republic. And he is also the person who had the most years of any first-term president. All the presidents that we've had, the first term was 4 years. Mahama alone had 4.5 years. So he had more time to show Ghanaians what he could do. And yet his performance did not meet the expectation of Ghanaians. And so he happens to be the only president who was not given a second term. Now he's coming back. So if you're going to talk about credibility, between somebody who's been president before and somebody and still coming back and making promises, and somebody who has not been president before, who has better credibility when you put the two gentlemen on the scale?
No. Okay.
Because what they are contesting for is for the office of president. And for that office, one of them has been president before. Okay? And so we've tried him. We gave him the chance to show us what he could do. And what he didn't meet our expectation. You must agree, because that's what the election, that's the only interpretation you can give to the election results. But what other interpretation can you give? For me, the most important thing that I worry about is that many of the things that John Mahama himself has said, that he said will promote 24-hour economy. Randy, he said the same things in 2012. Do you remember the private sector development strategy? If you look at that strategy, I had a copy in one of my files. I don't know if I still have it. But if you look at that strategy, which was launched in it was supposed to run from 2011, this one. It's supposed to run from 2011 to 2015.
It's 2010 to 2015.
2010 to 2015.
That's Professor Mills.
Yeah. Yes.
Yes.
Now, if you look at this thing,
yes,
all the things that they are talking about in 24 hours, the one Mahama himself says, they're all here. They're all here.
So what's the point you're making?
They couldn't do it. When he had a chance to be president for 4.5 years, those things that they said they were going to do in this program, they couldn't do it.
Those things that who said?
This strategy.
The 2010
to 2015.
Yes. Yes.
They couldn't do it. Okay. They're all here. Okay. Even if you move away from this, the things that President Mahama himself said, this is the first address he gave to the nation in September 2012. My brother here was going on about arrest of the city, and I could see that he was so happy. Mahama said the same thing. In paragraph 7, he says, this was in September, after the funeral of President Mills. He said, Mr. Chairman, thankfully, with timely measures put in place under the aegis of the Economic Advisory Council and the Economic Management Team, we have arrested the decline of the city. So he also told us that he's arrested the decline of the city. But then we know that the dollar wasn't arrested. You see, and all of this, he had the authority of the presidency. All the things that he said in this document. So how many pages? About 40 pages. And he had a chance, 4.5 years, to see to it. He failed. So if you are going to talk about credibility, you have to be a bit more careful. For somebody who's had a chance to be president and whose performance fell below expectation, and somebody who's never had a chance to be president, if you're going to talk about their respective credibility, you have to be careful. Okay?